Today's Sunday, June 7th, 2020. It's a bright, sunny, super windy day. Blue sky. Big puffy white clouds on the horizon. Super active ocean. Super clean, salty smelling air. Whoa. I love windy days like this on the ocean. Some sailboats out going by. These days are good for dreaming. Remind me a lot of my younger days on the Outer Banks of North Carolina. Growing up there, and standing with my face pointing out to sea and feeling a strong nor'easter blowing in, watching the waves get all wild. I lived there for 13 years. I did a lot of good dreaming staring out at that ocean. It's taken me on a lot of adventures, all those dreams. Today has been a day full of dreaming too. It's been so good. So much of what my soul needed today. I've been sitting with Becky on a blanket in the grass on the edge of the cliff over there, looking out over the water. I brought an old book of poetry down with me and was flipping through and reading a bunch of old poems that I've written over the last... Some of these poems are 20, 25 years old. Some of them more recent, 15 years old, 10 years old. I'm so grateful that I wrote those poems and spoke to things that were really important to me then, and even now, decades later, I can read it and it caught the energy of something that's still important to me today, and it's so satisfying to have it captured there and some of that energy captured inside that poem to connect back in with. I'm planning my second book of poetry that I want to release, hopefully by the end of the year. Poems that I've written in the last couple years, mixed with poems that I've written many years ago. I've been feeling inspired to work on that project today. It's feeling really good. Becky and I are putting the finishing touches on our advertisement for our Eremito, Italy tour retreats. We're calling it the Inner Temple Awakening. I'll speak more on that later. That's still coming together. When we have the advertisement ready, I'll speak about it in the video. It's been a really powerful weekend. We're moving out of my place in the next couple days. We're gonna move into our new apartment on Tuesday, Wednesday this week. It's the last weekend in my own place. I'm flying out to see my dad on Friday this week. Flying back to Virginia. There's been a lot coming up with that. Friday evening, I had my Wu Wei Brotherhood men's gathering that I hold once a month here on Bowen Island. And had our crew of men come out and meet on the beach. Had a beautiful fire under the full moon, Friday, June 5th. full moon in Sagittarius, eclipse night, like, wow. What a powerful evening. Really sweet to see our group come together and see how much it's evolved in this last year. I think our first group meeting was in July of last year, so we're just coming up on 1 year together. For all the men who have stayed consistent over that time. Friday was a really heavy day for me. I woke up on fire Friday morning, did some really intense writing before I went to work, and was late to work because I was having this inspiration I needed to get out, and had a really big day at work, was finishing work late, and the sweet couple that I'm doing the job for were dropping in, talking with me, and the travels to my father came up, and they asked me about my dad and how he's doing, how his health is. And it was the end of my work day, and somehow I hadn't had to say out loud to too many people that I'm not that close to that my father's not doing so good health-wise, and just to say that out loud to the woman on Friday afternoon, Friday evening, made me start to cry. And then to just speak that I'm going out to see my father, and intuition says this is a good chance this will be my last visit with my dad. And these are not new thoughts for me, but to speak them out loud and to admit them to other people has been a big deal. And man, I shed a lot of tears on the job site Friday evening, just coming to terms with how scared, how nervous I am about this visit to go out and see my dad. To just kind of know that I'm not ready for what I'm getting ready to do, and like can't wait to go see him. And I'm also really scared about what this whole trip is gonna mean, or how it's gonna unfold, and what I'm up against. And maybe I'm just now getting close enough with finishing work and a few projects last week that there's not much more left in between me and actually leaving to go see my dad, and I was able to feel it a little closer. And then finished work late, had to rush straight to the men's group, didn't have time to go home and shower or eat or do anything. I go straight to my men's group, and one of my brothers sees me in the parking lot, checking in with me, saying hi, and asks me how I'm doing, and I'm like, I just finished shedding a lot of tears at work and feeling a little exhausted, and I'm like, oh, you know, like, not too good, a little rough actually, and I was just doing my best to speak my truth to him, and just to tell him what's coming up for me and the sadness around my father. I start crying again. Being the good man that he is, he gave me a big hug and held me, and a lot more tears and sobbing came through. And went on to have a really beautiful evening with the men's group that night. And I guess in this video I just wanted to share the reality of what's been most real for me these last couple days when I haven't been recording videos. The energy was wild at the men's group. The ocean was a bit rough and boisterous like it is right now. The tide was high. Our fire was good. We were like, it took a while for us to calm down, and we were in a real playful, fun mood. And by the time we all had dropped in deep and shared, it was like midnight. And by the time we were wrapping up, a little after midnight maybe. And a really big day Friday. Saturday I just crashed and couldn't pull myself together to record a video. Got out of bed at like noon the next day or something, and took me all day to just rest from the week and get myself together. Late last night I put a post out on Instagram that I'm gonna share on Facebook today as well, and it was a little bit of what the inspiration was Friday morning, of what I was feeling really called to write and speak to. Just this movement with the blacked out screens, with the amplifying of the melanated voices, the speaking to the Black Lives Matter on the backside of this George Floyd video that was really disturbing, of the cop kneeling on a black man's neck, a white cop kneeling on a black man's neck, which appears to the point of death. And how disturbing that is for all of us to see that, when we know that's such a real issue that's present in our world, an ugly side of our underbelly of our society that doesn't ever seem to go away, that we don't ever seem to mature out of. And to put that in our face, for us all to have to look at it and be present with it, and to see that we haven't got to the root of the problem yet. We haven't addressed it head on. We're still learning how to work with that energy. And I've been watching all the different reactions to it all across the board. As with everything right now, very full spectrum. From one end of the pole, from the North Pole to the South Pole, and I couldn't help but feel like my own rage and indignation over it, and then also to feel slightly like manipulated, shamed into acting or reacting a certain way to fit some type of moral code. Basically feeling forced to fit into one box or another box, and as always, that never quite works. I don't think with any of us humans. Rarely works with me. Spending a whole lifetime in a religion growing up that shames me and uses guilt to push me in directions. I had a really rough time with that. And not that I didn't have my own rage and upset about it, but there was other things that I wanted to speak to and say with it. So I gathered down my 7 points and wrote them out and shared them. And I guess no need to re-speak them all right here because they're posted publicly now. And just that there's issues to me that are even more pressing for us to be focusing on, and that I don't like feeling coerced by some background source in our world trying to divide and conquer us and try to pit us against each other and shaming and angering. And I really feel the urge more than ever to speak to something that's a little bit more of a unifying factor for us, bringing us out of this race war, both to acknowledge the prejudice, the unfair treatment of the world we live in, and to also speak to the people behind the scenes who are purposely throwing gasoline on this fire, trying to use it and manipulate people's anger and emotions by touching wounds that are real. Like, I don't deny that these wounds are real, but I also feel like we're being pushed and manipulated and played by these wounds that are real. And I want to speak to that, and that was a bit of what I shared. And so if you're curious about what those 7 points were, today's Sunday, June 7th, and you can go back and see what I posted on my Instagram and my Facebook. And I use the symbol, my symbol I call Osharua, with a black background to mark the posting, and scrolling left to see my 7 points that I wanted to speak about. And I feel like maybe this share is long enough in the moment, and slowly getting myself back into my groove with speaking into these videos, and doing my best to speak loudly with all the sound of the crashing waves. With all the change in my life, Becky and I were making plans today for some of our travels in the fall, dreaming into what this next chapter of our lives are going to look like, reading poetry that went back into my first loves in my life, other lovers I've had, the purity of my own heart when I fell in love. Some of that seems to be captured in the poetry, and to look at that, to feel into that, where I am now, in my ability to be brave and love again and again. Life seems to hold this challenge out for us if we're daring to keep loving, daring to keep opening our hearts. See how much we can be moved by another person, how much we can let ourselves be affected. And I was just appreciating the sweet way that I'm understanding new ways where Becky and my life are meeting up, and where we share some really sweet innocence and sweet idealisms and sweet ways of dreaming, and some real purity of our souls that seem like a powerful combination when we get together and dream together and create spaces together, to even invite other people in to hold their dreams and to encourage them to brave into opening their hearts and dreaming a little bigger. That's a little bit of what's cooking in Becky and I's creations, and a little bit of what's real for me today. Preparing for my visit with my father, preparing for my move. Tidying up the details on our next retreat. That's going to be a week-long retreat, which is a new step for us, from our weekend retreat to a week-long retreat. And all the beautiful things we're hoping to wrap into that week. In a beautiful setting of Italian countryside, in a former monastery that's turned into a sweet little hotel slash sanctuary slash hermitage, which is the Italian word for hermit is eremito. So eremito is the name of the place, not necessarily the name of the town, just the building or the structure that's in Italy where our retreat's going to be held. And finishing up the details of that so that we can launch it and advertise it is what's happening for me today as we dream on this windy cliffside on Bowen Island, and think about all the beauty that's gone down in this space before I pick up and leave. I just arrived here 14 months ago. Yeah. I have another 4 or 5 months before I leave, maybe a year and a half total here on Bowen Island before my life path seems to be taking me down the road again. And I feel trying to be present with that today is a little bit too. Enjoying all these little beautiful seaside nooks All these mossy covered stones and red cedar trees and arbutus trees. The little seals peeking out at us from the water. Yeah, it's a beautiful day. It's felt really good getting lost in my poetry today. Getting washed by the salt air. And something about all the wind on the ocean is evokes my dreaming. It pulls the dreaming out of me. Even though I don't often ever get in a sailboat, it makes me think about sailing to some new land or some new adventure. And it's an energy that I love playing in, that I feel at home in. That's my share today. Thank you for taking the time to listen and tune in. Bless you on your journey. Till next time.